All right, it is still 7 o'clock on my phone, so we're going to start. We have everybody here. I appreciate all the bright colors. I like that. I've asked Heidi Whalen if she would offer the opening prayer, and then her son will lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance. So Heidi, if you'll come up to the stand. And your son if you'll just come up and sit on the front row, then behind your mom we can.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful to be meeting today together in the cause of supporting life, and grateful for the constitutional rights that we have and for the blessings of living in this free country and for the many opportunities we have. And we're grateful for the leaders of this community. Pray that they will be guided and directed, that they will be able to make wise choices that are according to thy will. And we pray for those who have sacrificed much time and talents and effort to promote life and protect all beings. And we pray for thy Spirit to be here, and pray that we will be instruments in thy hands in doing thy will. And say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Will the audience please rise? Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you, Joseph. All right, we do have at the front of our meeting unscheduled public appearances. That's a time for anyone to speak about an item that is not on the agenda. But first, we will hear from Erin, who's going to talk a little bit about the fling.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will be brief. So this update is for both you as our residents and non-residents alike who are here and are invited to our Highland Fling that's coming up. So I'm filling in for Julie. It is her husband's birthday tonight, so I'm going to read some words that she gave to me to remind you. We're very excited about the upcoming Fling, which actually starts in just 11 days. Please talk to all of your family and friends about the great events we have this week, starting Saturday, July 29th with our family adventure race, backyard garden tours, and our kickoff event, which is a luau, complete with great music and a dance show to include a fire dancer. Tickets for the dinner are $10 a plate, and you can pre-order on the website. Monday is our disc golf tournament, movie in the park, Spider-Man. We are also going to have a special Spider-Man visitor from 8 to 9 just before the movie. And at that same night, we will host 84 children entrepreneurs at a market from 5 to 8. We hosted this event last year in June, and it was a great event that we're excited to bring back. Tuesday, we'll have our baby celebration and service projects. Wednesday is kids' night with bike racing, a wild animal cardboard challenge, face painting, balloon animals, water bottle, rockets, and more. Thursday, we have this is the first time event, our middle schoolers activity, which is going to feature water slide, kickball, and water balloons. And then a horseshoe tournament and the fine art show reception. Friday is the Play Day Rodeo, Fine Arts Show, Strongman Competition, and our Youth Drive-In movie, back by popular demand. And then the big day, Saturday, we'll have our annual events of the 5K Fun Run and Trot for Courage with Courage Reigns, parade, activities in the park, vendor fair, Highland Games, Kids Zone, Fireman Spray, Fine Arts Show, historical displays, fireworks show, and entertainment. The stage will feature music and dance from various countries throughout the world, keeping with our theme. And there will also be an activity where people can spin a wheel and try a variety of foreign foods, including insects, Vegemite, Japanese candy, and more. So, it's going to be a lot of fun. And then the entertainment stage, our end of the night band is the Beatles tribute band, Imagine. And the second part of the concert's actually going to feature the Highland Fling Orchestra that's been formed for just this event. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We'd encourage council and residents and non-residents alike, please make it to as many events as you can. It's a wonderful week. And you can find out more information at highlandcityfling.com. And then council, I have an assignment sheet I'm going to pass around for you guys to sign up. We'd love to have at least one of you at all of the events. So thank you for that. Any questions, I guess, from council?
I will exclude myself from the food tasting event. How's that?
Darn it, you might get something really
Vegemite's
good.
awesome. Have you had it?
Yes.
I also want to pitch for the Arts Council. They will be having their art show over at the community center. Invite all to go there. And they will have a booth there at the Fling that you can dress up and get your picture taken as a beetle. Not as one of the Beatles, the famous Beatles. And so,
Not the bug.
Not the bug. So I'd encourage those to come and also participate with the Arts Council.
Just a question on funding.
Yes.
When I started on the council, we were spending about $35,000 on this event. We've knocked that down quite a bit. How close are we to breaking even?
So the budget that we have been operating on for the past few years has been $20,000, and this is net. We spend quite a bit more on this, but we also bring in enough revenue to try and offset. So we've been spending the council has given us a budget of $20,000. We've always, or in the last 3 years since Julie and I have been here, we've always hit about $15,000 is what we do, and that's what we're on target to do again this year as well.
So
Costs are rising, unfortunately. We're seeing with our rent, we have to rent quite a bit of equipment to make the Fling all happen, and we are seeing rising costs there, so we're a bit concerned, but we're doing our best to tighten our budget to keep everything in line.
Yeah, we would like to get to the point where it's self-funding.
We will continue to work there. It's a balance. As you know, you've been in the business world, you understand rising prices means maybe some people can't participate in the events as well, but you're absolutely right, Tim. We try to do our best to be frugal with this money and to
It's a pretty substantial reduction from 35, though.
It is a substantial reduction.
from the previous city I worked in, I can tell you they spend a lot more money on their events.
And that's why it's, I get a little excited when we start comparing ourselves to other cities, because other cities may be not thinking in the right way.
Right.
And I don't want to be going off the end of the pier with the rest of those cities. So we need to, focus on what we know is right and do that. So you guys are on the right track. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so is there anyone that would like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda? Okay, come and state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Doug Courtney, a resident of Highland. And to sort of segue from the presentation that Aaron just gave, and to follow up on something that Councilmember Irwin said, one of the ways that we keep our costs low for the Fling is with volunteer efforts. I'm working with Audrey Wright on the parade and some of the staging and making sure that everything runs smoothly there, and we're still looking for volunteers. So if any of you know of anyone who would like to volunteer, particularly if any of them happen to be sitting behind me right at this moment, please,
Feel free to talk to
anyone
him
can
as you
catch
leave.
me or just give them my contact information. We'd love to hear from folks and make sure the parade runs well again this year. Thanks.
Okay, I was going to volunteer anyone in a yellow shirt, just at random, right? Yes. Yes. Okay, anyone else? Item not on the agenda? Okay, we have a presentation by Tim Merrill on public meetings. This is good education for everybody. We made this really time efficient, so we'll do that right now.
Thank you, Mayor. You say presentation, but it's nothing quite so formal tonight. In the interest of time, I was just going to summarize some of the developments in the open meetings law. State law requires an annual training. We still have till the end of the year, but the state auditors are encouraging us to do it sooner than later. And I know this will be a swan song for those of you who this may be your last annual training of many, many, many. Our intention as staff is to do
tears.
Yes, is to do an in-depth training after the election for those who will be joining the council. The purpose of open meeting training is just to remind the council that the public's business is to be conducted transparently and openly. And I can state as the city attorney that I think the Highland City Council is exemplary in this respect. The small minor change to the law this year is they added a provision about the definition of a quorum. So it wasn't a big deal for us, it doesn't affect us, but we know that a meeting requires a simple majority to have a quorum. But the problem was with the county commission, they only have 3 people on the commission, so when you had 2 people, they technically had a quorum, but the definition of meeting says it's not a meeting with just 2 or fewer elected officials. So that created some ambiguity that was clarified this year. So now it says that a quorum is still a simple majority and that 2 elected officials cannot have a meeting by themselves.
So for us, 2 cannot?
Correct.
Now, there were some provisions, so define meeting. What constitutes a meeting, a public meeting?
So a meeting is the convening of a public body by the presiding officer. So it's not a meeting unless it's formally convened by the presiding officer. So what happens is when 3 of you meet together at the Highland Fling, kind of ad hoc, it's not a meeting because there are 3 of you there. It's just that you're not able to discuss the public's business because we're not in a public meeting convened for that purpose. And the definition of quorum now says, quorum does not include a meeting of 2 elected officials by themselves when no action, either formal or informal, is taken. The other interesting development in the law this year is somewhat related to the council's conduct in terms of referenda and initiatives. What happened was, you remember in Holiday, they had the old Cottonwood Mall site that's been vacant for a long time. Ivory Homes came in hoping to develop it. They worked with the city. They had everything going well, and there was a referendum that was filed, and it finally went up to the Utah Supreme Court on whether it was an administrative or legislative action. The Utah Supreme Court determined that was referable. It was a legislative action based on that site-specific development. And so the Utah League of Cities and Town went to the legislature this session and said, what can you do for cities to kind of give us more freedom to advocate for something that we really believe in is in the best interests of the city? Because formally, the city council had to remain neutral as a body, even though individually council members can still campaign and have freedom of speech. But collectively, there was that neutrality requirement, and we couldn't expend any public funds. So the compromise that was struck was that the council can now expend a reasonable amount of money to either advocate for or rebut against an initiative or referendum. So that'll be interesting to see how this now will.
So a council member on their own dime can, or is it the city's dime?
We're not talking about city money.
Right.
We're talking about now the city can spend a reasonable amount.
The city can.
That was the compromise.
So this really spun up from the Provo Orem.
And there was that matter as well.
I mean, it was the transit line that was there, and the city or the state sued and all sorts of things. That's where it really started from.
Yep. So I think it's a positive development. The city still needs to remain balanced so that when it takes a position for or against a proposition, it still needs to provide time to the opposing party for the counter side or counter argument. The thing that has not changed, though, is that the council still may not use your city-issued email address to advocate for or against a proposition matter. So even though you have your full free speech rights, it would be from a private email address that you would be doing that for.
So if we're not advocating for or against, can you use your email to, I mean, this was the issue with the rapid transit in Orem and Provo. They were just trying to communicate facts as they perceived it, but they were trying to communicate those facts from their accounts. So if that's not advocating, but just trying to communicate out the facts, can you use your?
You may. So I think the law is written very clearly now. You may respond to individual questions factually from your public email account.
Okay.
Now, every year, because I try to find something a little bit novel or new or different, So what I wanted to focus on here was everything has to be on the agenda when it's actionable, but we know that we can discuss items that are not on the agenda when they're raised by the public. But the law states by the public. And so kind of the nuance there is a council member is not considered a member of the public here because you're part of the body. So if the council wants to discuss an item, rather than raising it in our discussion period and then having, a full-blown discussion about it, really it would be better protocol for you to get it on the agenda so it can be noticed. So there's a difference between when a member of the public comes up to the podium and talks about, we want a dog park in Highland, for example, or for pink poodles or chihuahuas. And then there's a discussion about that. That would be permissible. But if just at the end of the meeting, a council member had that desire to do the same thing, we really shouldn't have a discussion when it's raised by the body because the body's able to put it on the agenda.
So if I text Kim and tell Kim to come up here and bring it up, then we can have the discussion.
If she likes pink poodles, you may.
She's not into pink poodles. Maybe something else.
Now, I always think it's worthwhile to just summarize the reasons we would go into closed meeting. It would be to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, or strategy sessions for collective bargaining, pending or reasonably imminent litigation, purchase, exchange, or release of real property or water shares, the sale of those properties and shares, the deployment of security devices, and to investigate allegations of criminal conduct. So thank you for the time you've given me to go over and summarize our open meetings law. Thank you.
Okay, before we start with the rest of our agenda, I would ask the council's indulgence. We would like to move item 6 to the end of the meeting. That would put 6 at position 8. Todd is a critical component to that discussion, and he has a personal matter that requires his attention, and if we push it to the end, he hopefully will be back by then.
Also, Mayor, if I may make a comment, I've been watching on Facebook the interviews that Mr. Hart has been doing with the various candidates. It's been very helpful, and you're doing this completely on your own, and so if you're a candidate for Highland City Council, and I don't know if you've done them all yet, but it's very helpful to get to know the candidates. So thank you for taking your own personal time and doing that.
And if you want to know about the candidates, go out there online and look them up because they are really well done.
Yep. It's YouTube channel, Utah's Highlander is the channel. Okay, we have one consent item, approval of the meeting minutes, and I saw that there was one change requested. That's been taken care of. Any other comments on that?
Move to approve the consent items with the change in the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, we're ready to vote, Aaron? And for those of you that are new here, we do electronic voting, and mostly it works. Occasionally we have technical difficulties, but it's nice. Ed Dennis is not here. It's excused absence. That passed unanimously. Thank you. The next item is item 4, resolution on the declaring Highland City's support for protecting all human life. I had a resident email me a resolution, and I want to thank her, Ginger DeHart. Appreciate that. Or actually Harris, sorry. And I reviewed it and thought it was something worthy of our attention. I personally have a stake in this in a couple different ways. I shouldn't do this, but I do, sorry. I have 2 areas of my life where that matters. One is my wife. Her mother chose life and adopted her. And now our family's blessed. We wouldn't have a family without her. And that was hard because that was not an easy time. That was an inconvenient decision, and she made an inconvenient choice that blessed my life, our family's life, and the lives of the people that she helps, and she helps a lot of people. Second thing is, for the last year and a half, my wife and I have volunteered at the developmental center. And I have seen up close and personal people that I know a number of people would say, well, what's the point? You know, they're in a wheelchair, they're not that cognitive, but I have seen the impact that the opportunity that we have to serve them and our youth have to serve them that has on their lives. You know, they realize how blessed they are. They are inspired by these people, and when they smile, it makes them happy, and it makes me happy, and I cry almost every Sunday, and some Wednesdays. So to me, life at any stage has value, and that's what this resolution is about. So let me take a minute, and I'm going to skip the whereases. I'm just going to read the therefores, because that's what is really important. So therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Highland that we declare that all human life, regardless of age or circumstance, must be protected by the laws of society. We support legislation on the state and national levels that protects human life from its earliest stages, and we oppose lessening existing restrictions on abortion and euthanasia. We honor the rights of healthcare providers to object on moral grounds to performing abortions or euthanasia, and we oppose any regulation or law seeking to violate that right. We support the promotion of adoptions as an alternative to abortion. We encourage state and federal governments to support adoption at higher levels, and we support the enactment of legislation to ease the adoption process. We support efforts to educate and support parents in choosing life-affirming options for their unborn children. We recognize and support those who have to make the difficult decision as to whether to terminate a pregnancy in the case of rape, incest, or when the mother's health is endangered. Highland City declares itself a safe haven for all of its citizens, including the unborn, the elderly, and the mentally and physically impaired. So with that, I will turn the time. We've allocated 20 minutes to this issue, so I invite those of you that would like to speak to either side of the issue to come forward and present your case. My wife is raising her hands. Please come up. Please don't be redundant. You know, if you want to get up and say, I agree, you don't have to repeat what anybody else said. So state your name.
My name is Suzanne Mann, and I'm a resident of Highland. I want to tell you a little story. And this is the third reason why our family cares about this resolution. In 1984, I was pregnant with our second child and was threatening miscarriage. Since sonograms weren't common in those days, the doctor used his stethoscope to find the baby's heartbeat. Hooray! Our baby was still alive. The doctor didn't join in our excitement and relief at finding out this news. He proceeded to tell us many reasons why we should terminate the pregnancy. After recovering from the shock of his callous words, I said, "You just found this heartbeat on my baby. I'll take my chances." About 5 months later, the most beautiful baby I had ever seen was born. I have visual aids.
I'd like to see that too.
He has now grown into a handsome work of art who has done some great things in his life. He served our country for 5 years in the Army. He was on the All-Armed Forces volleyball team twice. He's gone to college. He's received his master's degree. And he is now a brilliant scientist who has discovered a way to help athletes, which will probably change the world. He is kind-hearted and hardworking. And so this isn't about me, and I was adopted, and I am so appreciative that my mother chose life. This is about other people that can make a difference in the world. So I thank you for bringing this awareness and show that Highland cares and loves its residents, and that all life is important, including the unborn. Thank you.
My name is Deanna Holland. I'm the Vice President of Pro-Life Utah, part of the Abortion Free Utah campaign, and most importantly tonight, a 25-year resident of Highland. Tonight, I stand here and publicly thank you for bringing this issue forward, for doing that which is within your power to stand for all human life. For too long, we have a society have sat on the sidelines thinking there was nothing we could do. For 46 years, we were told that we had to sit back and do nothing while women were used and babies died, and we believed that. That was a lie. We should not have listened, and now we are waking up. In 1973, we were told that abortion simply got rid of a clump of cells. We believed them. And then the invention of the ultrasound machine happened. And little by little, we realized the truth. Even now, scientists are learning about how unborn babies can recognize their mother's voice, how pain is being felt earlier than we thought. Doctors perform fetal surgery on babies the same age as those that are being aborted. These are tiny children with beating hearts, livers, lungs, brain waves, kidneys, and little tiny hands and feet. We cannot be fooled any longer. This little pin is the feet of a 10-week-old baby. They have feet very early. So the arguments had to change. We now hear that, yes, it's a biological human, but it's not yet a human being. That an unborn child is nothing more than a tumor. That it is pregnancy tissue. It's not a person because it's not sentient. That it's not a baby till it takes its first breath. That a woman should not be forced to carry the very child she helped to create. That it's not a child, but a utero-potential individual. You see, it's actually very hard to describe unborn children in a way that does not humanize them. These are not potential humans, they are just humans. Since starting this work, I can tell you that most Utah women getting an abortion are scared, alone, and feeling like society is telling them that abortion is the solution to their situation. Unmarried, get an abortion. Young, in college, financially unstable, abortion is the solution to that. But today we break away from the shackles of falsehood and fear. We start to turn our culture in a better direction, to say that we will not silently accept the death of Utah's most innocent any longer, that we can do better, that we can help women in ways that do not end in lifelong regret for her and death for her baby. So it's with hope and joy in my heart that I am here today to see our city stand up for life, to act, to educate, to reach out in love and hope, and today I am proud to be a citizen of Highland. Please vote yes.
My name is Gail Rosika, and I'm also a resident of Highland. I'm also president of Utah Eagle Forum. We have people, lots of people here that live in Highland who are part of that organization. And I'm here today to say thank you. Thank you for considering this. Thank you for looking at this, and thank you for voting for this, because what a difference. Some people have asked, why do we care about resolutions, and why would you even want to do this, because it's just a resolution. Well, it's not just a resolution. It's a statement, a strong statement that you'll be making to all of the people of Utah and beyond, that you stand for life, that you believe that these little unborn babies are just that at conception, life begins. And that's an amazing thing. And I'm grateful that you're willing to do that. And what difference is it going to make? Well, every time we stand for life, babies are saved. Many years ago, back in 1991, we passed a very important piece of legislation. It was a piece of legislation that said life begins at conception. And the legislature passed it, and the governor voted for it, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. It actually got cert, which is big. It's a big issue to get cert. And during that time, because some things held it up, one of the Supreme Court justices retired that would have voted for it. And so it failed in the courts. But you know what happened in Utah? People thought when we passed that abortion was illegal. The numbers went way down. We were about close to 5,000 a year then. It went down, and we are still at 3,000 a year. Now that's a lot. That's way too many. It's horrifying to think of that. But think of just by the legislature standing up, speaking out, and passing that, what a difference it made. And now what a difference this is going to make. Because you know what? You've sent a message to the children. Because our children haven't lived when abortion wasn't legal. They're being taught in the schools that abortion is illegal, and even reasons why it's okay to have an abortion. But you're about to tell them that it's not okay, that this is a human life. I'm really old, and so I was around before Roe versus Wade. And I remember those times, and I remember the shock of this happening. And I've been involved ever since that time in trying to stand for life. And I know every time I stand for life, babies are saved. And when you stand for life, as you will tonight, lots of babies will be saved. And young people, their mothers that consider it, who now will know that, no, this isn't the right way to go. How many young girls, the mothers of these babies, lives will change because they don't have an abortion? So thank you very much.
Ginger Harris. I've been a Highland resident for 17 and a half years and was the one who emailed Ron the resolution. And I had one comment from one of the council members saying, well, why do we need this? Why is it important? And as a mom and member of this community and world, it's often I'm reading the news and just feel discouraged and overwhelmed about the negative things happening in the world. So this is one opportunity you and I can stand up and commit to protect life in our own community. 20 years ago, as a young mom, I had one baby and I was pregnant with my second, and many times the doctor would say things like this. Listen up, Dr. Smith. If you're smart enough, if you're smart, you'll do this. And you know, in this case, it was just to induce my child. But I can see, and if I was a young, scared, single mom and a doctor telling me, if you're smart, you'll do this. On the way here, my son was telling me, he's 20 years old. He said, Mom, did you know that there's a Planned Parenthood right next to UVU? I did not. And in our age and stage of life, we don't even look at those and notice those buildings. But it's targeted to those youth in that situation. So I plea for you to vote for this resolution, to bring it to the attention of, keep it going in the media, to legislators, so that our state can get behind protecting the unborn. Thank you.
My name is Michelle Porcelli. I am a resident of Alpine, but one of my most favorite people in the world is a resident of Highland. I am a certified counselor and a licensed school teacher and a former director of Young Mothers High School for Alpine School District in the 90s until we lost our funding in the year 2000. I met a girl who got pregnant her junior year of high school and dropped out of school. I met her senior year of high school. She did not want this baby. In fact, her boyfriend, who said he loved her, tried to help her abort this baby by kicking her in the stomach and helping her take illicit drugs. The baby didn't abort, it wanted to live. The baby was born deaf. When I got her, she did not want to come to school. These young mothers, whatever age they are, need hope. We gave her hope that she can do this and have support, and that we value the baby's life and hers. She did not miss a single day of school her senior year, and she graduated with a high school diploma. Before we changed the credits to 24, it was 28 credits. Sometimes when we fight for adults to save the children, sometimes we find it's the child that has saved the adult. Thank you.
found out about this last minute, and I wasn't planning on commenting until Kurt told me I should. So, I am grateful for the work that these women are doing. I've been gone for the last 8 or 9 months taking care of my parents in Washington, and I was so excited that there was a meeting right in my own city of Highland about this.
Would you mind mentioning your name just
My name is Heidi Wayland, and I am a Highland resident, yes.
Thank you.
Of about 15 years. And I just, for years, I haven't understood why America of all nations would, support something so against what we were founded on. That this is a nation under God. And how could we allow abortions to happen here? And what was even more shocking and disappointing and just upsetting was that Utah allows abortions. And I just think that we need to take a stand, that if we want to not be accountable for those sins of this generation, we need to stand for truth. And I hope that in this community especially, which is so pro-family, that you will represent us. And I'm so grateful for the freedoms and the life that I have. I'm grateful to be a mother. I'm grateful to have 7 children. I come from a family of 10 children, and we sacrificed. My parents did, and my husband and I sacrificed, and I know that there are young women out there that aren't ready for this. But what are we teaching young people when we allow this option to even exist? We're teaching them irresponsibility. They're not learning self-discipline. They're not learning to sacrifice and to do what is right. And I just hope and pray that you'll support this resolution. I know it's just a resolution, but honestly, I can't stand by while this is happening. And I hope that you won't either. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Doug Courtney. I'm a resident of Highland. And I'd like to echo something that Gail Rosika said earlier. She said that if you adopt this resolution, you'll be sending a strong statement. And I agree with that. It will be a statement with which I personally am in strong support. The statement I'd like to talk about, though, is the statement opposed to the death penalty, rather than the statement opposing abortion. Because the first operative clause reads, "We declare that all human life, regardless of age or circumstance, must be protected by the laws of society." If we pass a resolution that says that, that precludes the death penalty. Personally, I'm very opposed to the death penalty on moral grounds. I believe that I'm in the minority in the city of Highland in that regard. And so I hope you give serious thought to either altering that first operative clause or understanding that you are adopting a resolution that probably goes against the values of a majority of Highland. Personally, I will be pleased to have that statement. I'm not sure the rest of the city would share that pleasure with me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, council, any discussion?
I'd like to say something. As many of you know, I'm a physician, and I've had a small obstetric practice. And there's never been any doubt in my mind that life starts with conception, and there's never been any doubt that the babies and the mothers I take care of have human babies. I think it's one of the most unreasonable unacceptable argument that we have had in this country that that baby isn't a human being until it's born or until it's 18 weeks or 20 weeks. So I support this resolution a lot. And, you know, I've kind of sat back for 46 years and been really frustrated with the abortions in this country. And one thing that's being brought forward is that we talk a lot in the news media about racism and stuff now. It's kind of a popular term to talk about, but abortion is racist. Abortion aborts many more minorities than it does Caucasians and different things. And so, to me, it's totally unjust and immoral and wrong. So I support this resolution, and as been said here, yeah, we're not going to change the laws of the lands with this one resolution, but, you know, big things start small. And if we're all standing up and saying, you know, we support life, and I think that's the right thing to do. Just wanted to say one other little thing. Occasionally I've had a patient, a mother who's not been able to keep her baby and has put it up for adoption. And it's been amazing to me when the word gets out, there are people that come from the Intermountain West seeking to adopt that baby. So there's a big demand to adopt, and I think that is the viable option. So I support this resolution a lot. I agree with Doug Courtney. I don't think it's meant to eliminate the death penalty, but maybe, I don't know. I think I support the death penalty. I think there's good reasons to have that. But at the same time, I think we're talking about the unborn here and saying we're against abortion. So that's all I'd like to say.
Anyone else?
I have two family members who weren't able to have kids, and they've had to adopt or had the privilege, I guess is a better way to say it, of adopting. And so it's had a big impact in my family. There's nothing in this that I'm opposed to from a personal standpoint. My biggest struggle with resolutions is, first of all, they don't mean anything from a legal standpoint. Second of all, it's not really a city council of Highland issue. It is a state and it's a federal issue. I have no problem standing up shoulder to shoulder with everyone here at the state level and arguing for everything that's in here. I believe in every piece of this. My struggle is there have been multiple resolutions that have come before the city council about stuff that has, you know, something to do with things that we have no control over, federal kinds of things, and state issues, and I just fundamentally think that most of the time it's a waste of time. I think that it's awesome that you guys are supporting this. I think it's great that you have that desire. I'm there with you in everything that's in here. I just struggle with resolutions as a principle, not as the content of this. Again, it has more to do with, it does, from the standpoint of a city council member for Highland City, making this statement doesn't carry what it may be perceived to carry. It's because it's really a state issue. But I believe everything that was stated here, and I support everything that is stated here. I've struggled about how to vote for this because of that issue. On the one side, if you vote against it, it makes it look like you disagree with it. And yet I believe every word that's in here. So I've been struggling. It's been a hard one. And it's not because of the resolution, it's because of that principle of what a resolution is and when it should be applied to a city council or a state or a nation.
I guess for me, I'm opposite of you, Brian. I want to send a message to the state. It's time for them to do something for the unborn. I want to be sensitive as I share this. I also, Mayor, had a young one that was born at 18 weeks. And as they talked, and as individuals talk about abortion, when we met with the doctors and we recognized I'd gotten off a business trip, and my wife called and said she was at the hospital, and I just thought, okay, she had high blood pressure. But as we went down to the hospital and I met her there, they let us be aware we were going to have a little baby born that night. Now, they warned us that the likelihood of being able to survive was going to be low. We had to make some decisions. And I will share with you that when our little Thomas was born, it was one of the most sweet experiences. And I saw Thomas there at 18 weeks, taking breaths and the stomach going up and down as it was a live baby at 18 weeks. And I spent the beautiful 10 minutes with my little boy, and I remember that. And I'll remember it the rest of my life. So I support this resolution.
I guess I would only say that it isn't often that as a council we get to make a statement like this. We take an oath to uphold the Constitution, and I have said in my campaign that my primary goal is to uphold your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so consequently, it's an easy decision for me to support this. We should stand up for life, and even though it might be a state issue or a federal issue, it's also a personal issue. And we've had so many family friends that have struggled with these things, and I'm glad to hear Scott, Dr. Smith, talk about his views, because there are doctors out there that try to convince women to abort their children, and it really is not their position, in my view, to do that. We have a very close friend that was pregnant with twins, and she had just had a stroke. And the doctor said that it was quite likely that she could die if she took the babies to term. And she said, I will not end the lives of my two children. We don't cry often in this council.
I'm a boob, okay?
But it does happen. And those two little girls are just beautiful children right now. And I know she has said that she just loved to take those two children to the doctor who said that they should be aborted. Because the minute he said that, she says, well, then I need a new doctor. And she has a new doctor that she called Dr. Awesome. So it's very easy for me to support this. And Mr. Mayor, I would move the question. I would make the motion that we pass this resolution.
And I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I will point out that this legislative session, the Utah State Legislature passed the T21, the TACO 21, and it was two cities, Cedar Hills and Lehi, that passed resolutions that gave them the moral courage to do that. Public comments over, sorry. So we're ready for a vote? Okay, you came, now you have to stay to the end.
I have to
see
say
how much
also,
control
Mayor,
I have over
if I may, it's really nice to have the president of the Eagle Forum here in our, living here in our city. The Eagle Forum has just done some amazing work when it comes to these issues, and thank you so much for what you do and the effort that you put in. I've talked to your husband, he knows how dedicated you are and the rest of your volunteers, so thank you, Gail, for all you do.
You got to come up to the mic, though.
They come up to the mic. Do them.
I'm the husband of the president of Utah Eagle Forum.
That's your claim to fame.
And I occasionally have an opinion of my own. Listening to all the comments, particularly from the council, it struck me, and that's why I'm sorry I didn't come up during the public comment time, but just let me be brief. I approach this from a different perspective because I am in touch with the issues every day that this country is facing. And this issue, because it's being discussed today, and I somewhat agree with you, Councilman Braithwaite, in terms of the efficacy of resolutions, particularly on a city level. But here's my perspective and my point. On so many issues that are critical in this country today, we have incrementally, over a long period of time, given up ground and surrendered principles and liberty and freedoms that we may never get back, because it takes us getting to the point where it seems like there's nothing left to do but fight, basically, and then of course it's too late. So the way I see this resolution is it's a powerful statement. It's a necessary statement. It's a statement that we all need to make individually, in organizational groups, and as government bodies, that we have reached that line in the sand. And it's time now to reverse the decades of insanity that have been going on in this country. It's important that we make those statements because very few people are. And so I applaud you, and I give my thanks and appreciation to you for doing this.
Thank you. Okay. Excused absence, you can leave. I have no control. So the rest of the meeting, we're going to move on to item 5. Thank you for coming. Is a action on the final master plan and budget for Spring Creek Park. Nathan will take that item. Well, maybe we'll let a little bit of the ruckus die down. If you're in the back, feel free to move to the front.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. After quite a bit of time working on this project, we're here to present the final master plan for the Spring Creek Park. It is before, the master plan is shown before you, just an overview. I have it laid out, the key elements. We have a playground, a turf play area, 2 pavilions that will have picnic tables that will be power to the pavilions. There's a walking path and benches. The total project is just about $500,000. And speaking with the developer, once they start, the plan is to focus on the park first. At least it was 2 weeks ago. We'll see how that goes. We do have some grass areas. The primary differences between this plan and the one we saw when the council approved the conditional use permit is the elimination of a swing set for liability purposes and a little reduction in some rock mulch areas. But it is before you today. It doesn't look as fancy because it is in a black and white version. Our park superintendent and city engineer have looked at it. As part of the development, it will be part of the bond and be inspected and so forth as part of that development. So with that, happy to answer any questions. That'll result in proceeds of about $1.4 million from the sale of Spring Creek.
So let me just pause here. Any public comment on this item, Kelly? State your name when you come up.
Kelly Sabatka. I'm sure you're tired of seeing me here, but I appreciate the ability to speak. Nathan sent me this park layout yesterday, and I appreciate that. And it caused me a little bit of concern, and maybe truly it is seeing it in black and white, but it feels, I'm probably speaking on behalf of our neighborhood. They're not here. I'm not sure that any of our neighborhood knew that this was for final approval this evening. But we were shown something probably a little greater than this as far as a park was concerned. Our neighborhood feels like we gave up quite a bit. We had open space in front of us of 11 or 12 acres, and we were convinced that the city needed money to go and finish parks. And our neighborhood somewhat put their arms around it. I think if they were to undo today, they would say, hey, we're still fine with the land in front of us as it is. But it feels like we were sold 31 flavors and we're sort of given vanilla now. But as I said, it's difficult to see exactly what's there. And I know, Nathan, you have what's listed. It's going to be there. And you know, you see that, and it's very different to compare that to a black and white photo. I know originally we looked at this concept. There was a concept that was shown by the builder that had a pickleball court, that had a splash pad, that had a lot of different things. When I took a look at this, it sort of felt like we weren't getting what we had anticipated when we were originally sort of told, hey, we're going to put a park in your neighborhood, it's going to get finished, and maybe it is truly the ability to market something that's in color like this is to us. So that's my only suggestion, is that I don't know how many trees are here versus how many trees are listed in the final. I only counted maybe 40 trees in this park of 2 acres, and I have 40 trees in my yard of a half acre. So I'm not sure that you know, I can't tell which are trees there versus bushes. They're not really detailed out here, but I would just ask you to look at it, and I can't tell you. None of our neighbors could tell you, we want this in our park. Well, sure, we would love a pickleball court, but it seems like our community is anti-pickleball right now. But I don't know. I just wanted to come and express my concern. I sent Councilman Smith my concern last night that, hey, it sort of feels like we've got a really stripped back version of what we originally were shown as a neighborhood of what was going to be there. So I appreciate your time.
77 trees and 125 bushes.
Yeah, I didn't see that in the document that I received yesterday.
It's in the document sent out on the website for council and everybody.
Okay, yeah. All I saw was the black and white picture from the landscape company, so it didn't tell us how many trees were in there. I sort of just counted up, and I couldn't tell which were trees and which were bushes.
You'd have to look at the details in that.
So Kelly, can I ask you a question? I'm a little confused because when we had the meeting, when we were out here in the foyer, several of the residents there that were in your neighborhood mentioned they would just rather have grass, that they didn't want to have this huge park there. So I'm really kind of confused in your comment, what you're stating from what I've heard from some of those residents, because I'm going, some of them says, no, please just have it all grass.
Well, and I think that's what they were saying. If you didn't sell the land and just put the whole land as park, that was my understanding of it. Now, I could have misinterpreted that, but I think I think the neighborhood was somewhat split of should the city sell the land or not, or just keep it there. And so I just want to make sure that we have a nice park that's appropriate. We gave up this land to go build parks, and it feels like we've trimmed it down a little bit.
Just to help me with clarification, you mentioned you have a half acre with a lot of trees. You know, right now, this is a proposal of $500,000 for 2 acres. We're spending $250,000 per acre for landscaping, probably more than what we sold the ground for. I mean, I've done a lot of landscaping in my yard.
Right.
And I'm just kind of I don't know, you know, and I'm like, but you have a half acre. I don't know how much you spend on your landscape. It just seems like in my opinion, we're spending a lot of money here. And I think it's a little overkill.
I don't know what the requirements are that the city put on the developer to go and get bids and see a competitive bid. I'm not sure how that works for the city when you're doing it the way that you're doing. You're asking the developer to go build the park and maybe deed it back to the city once it's completed. But was there a competitive bid process that the developer went through to do this? I don't know.
There's no requirement that the developer does the park at all. So it's either the developer does it or we outsource it to someone else.
Right. But if the city took it on themselves to go do this park, they wouldn't go to one person and say, hey, go build us a park and tell us what it's going to cost. They went through a bid process, and I'm not sure that, I don't know how that's working with the builder. And it's in their best interest to build a beautiful park. I understand that because they're selling the lots around it. But that was my concern.
So anything else? Because this is not a dialogue with Kelly. Do you have any other information to share?
No, I just wanted to voice my concern that I felt like we were shown something greater than what has been shown to us as the final plans.
Okay.
You know, residents never get all 31 flavors. And
Sure
I'm hoping that we're at least 15 to 18.
Yeah, but if we pulled up what the builder originally, that's not their original one, Nathan.
No, you're right. Their original one had splash pads and things that we...
Pickleball court, a basketball hoop in it.
Right, and we flat out said we couldn't do that.
And that was in a public meeting, and we picked the other vendor, the other bidder, they had a lot less.
Yeah, we were pretty clear that that wasn't something that we could do.
And it is interesting because I think Kurt's right. We're spending an awful lot of money here. I have, a little over a half an acre, and I have 35 trees on my small little lot, and it's a lot of trees.
Sure.
So, we are spending a lot of money here, and I do trust that we've done the due diligence to make sure we're getting our bang for our buck.
That was the one question, the follow-up question I had for the council is how do we ensure that the developer went about spending the city's money, really, in the right way?
Well, that's one of the purposes we're here tonight. So this plan is what we included as part of the purchase contract with the developer. And the plan that Kelly's referring to is what was included in the original bids that we looked at. We had two contracts. Two bids. The one bid was had just an amount, if I remember right, and then we had a drawing, and we said, well, okay, that was too much to spend on a park. And we came up with this concept after meeting. We showed this at a neighborhood meeting, and then we did a conditional use permit working with the developer, and this is what they came up with. And the primary changes, the plant material is basically saying the primary changes is that we remove the swing set for liability purposes, and we move the play set from back in the corner on my right, so your right, to where the swing set was. We wanted the swing set closer to the road so it could be visible more, and we didn't want it next to those homes back in the corner.
Yep.
So those are the two primary changes. The other thing we did is we moved the picnic tables from around the perimeter to underneath the pavilions, and then put benches where the picnic tables were. Those were the primary changes that we made. But if you look at the quantities, as far as plant material and things like that, they match what is shown here.
Okay.
In that
so
black and
that's
white.
Detailed in as far as
what the bid
how
is,
many
yeah.
how many trees, bushes, things like that. I guess I should have asked for that yesterday, Nathan.
And my apologies, I should have sent that to you.
Anyway, it was on the agenda. You could have downloaded from the website.
I downloaded the agenda today, but it didn't. It only had a photo of the park.
Further past it, it shows that detail.
Okay, great. Okay. My
This is
mistake.
the agenda I printed out today from the website.
Great.
And it has the details of how many trees.
So yours had a printed in color, huh?
No.
It's what I downloaded.
No.
The printer printed in color. It's that picture
Not the
that you're looking
plan.
at.
Not the plan. They didn't have the plan in color.
In the PDF, it is in color, so if you print it on a color printer,
Not the
you'll
plan.
get the color too.
Not the plan.
Thanks for the lesson.
So are we having council discussion here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we got another, okay.
We go
Yeah,
back.
Carrie Bushman, Highland, you've heard from me already before. I'm here again. I want to talk about this park really quick. $250,000 an acre is way too much for landscaping. Doing my own landscaping is about $120 a tree. You're looking at 77 trees at $120, about $9,240 for trees. For grass, it would probably be about $5,000 for sod. I just think it's way overbid. We look at labor. When I did my landscaping, it probably cost me about $30,000 for my entire lot. I think looking at that, maybe look at a different option. I don't know how you feel about this, but as far as his neighborhood, I think it's a great opportunity for the neighborhood to get together, get all the Boy Scouts together and do some work. Save the city some money and the residents some money. So that's what I think. Thank you.
Okay, council.
Okay, I just wanted to bring up some things. When I looked at this final plan, and I've been present in a lot of the different variations and different things, I kind of share some of the same concerns of Mrs. Bushman and Kelly. Nathan, how much would it cost us to put like a sport court in there? Like a pickleball court? I mean, I've heard different prices from $25,000 to $50,000 on a pickleball court.
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can go get it for you.
And how much would it cost us to put a basketball hoop and a little bit of pavement in there? I just think we need, I mean, we got a beautiful park here that's landscaped.
Yeah.
So a couple of playgrounds, some picnic tables, but could there be, like a basketball hoop? Could there, how, because I do know this, because I'm the liaison with the Highland Foundation. I know there's some money sitting in the foundation that were earmarked for pickleball courts that are not occurring in the other park that could be used to put a pickleball court in this park. And I think the opposition we got from people in the city was not against pickleball courts, but we're against a pickleball tournament complex. So I think if we have pickleball courts in the different parks, if we can find a way to pay for it, I think we ought to look into that. I'm uncomfortable with the costs on this park too. I know how it's evolved and we appreciate all the work done on it, but I'm just wondering if we can add a couple things without increasing expenses a lot.
Well, sure, we're happy to add any the amenities that the council wants. When the conditional use permit was approved by the council, the discussion was to try to keep the cost of the park low and try to hit that $500,000 amount. And so that's what we tried to do. If you add the pickleball and you add the sports court, you're going to increase the cost quite a bit. But again, it's the council's park. If you'd like us to add those amenities, we'd be more than happy to.
So Nathan, I've got to admit, I don't always have the best memory, but I thought we were trying to hit 300,000 on this. I mean, I'm sorry, there's no way $500,000 for 2 acres. This is way overkill. I mean, I go through this, we have an irrigation system, $40,000 per acre, it's $80,000. We're putting down sod for $35,000. We want to put down cobblestone, rocks down for $47,500. We have all these trees. I mean, I just, as a responsibility, I can't see how we're spending so much on a park.
So I think, if you jump in here a minute, I think the council needs to decide a number of things because we're getting conflicting messages. We had neighborhood meetings and we had different messages coming out there about the amenities, what the neighbors wanted. We went through preliminary planning process. We went through the conditional use permit process. We have conflicting messages that came out of there. We're having conflicted messages. We'll build whatever the council wants. So what we need the council to do, the developer would like to move forward on Spring Creek. One of the stipulations and they would like to build a parade home, and it takes about a year to build for next year. So, and we have deadlines as far as irrigation goes to lay sod. We have deadlines as far as paving goes for the end of October. What we need the council to do is say, we're willing to spend X on a park. And you tell us we want to spend X, then we will go design and have this amenities, then we will go design a park with that amount, with this amenities, and we'll go from there. We're happy to produce anything that the council would like, but we need that clear direction so we can move forward.
Well, I'd like to see some costs for maybe a little sports court or a basketball thing, if we can.
Yeah, you give me 5 minutes, I could go get it for you.
Seems like we have enough basketball courts in the city. I mean, every church building has several.
You know, I think in a park you want something they can't do at their home. You know, I appreciate the basketball, but I don't see basketball being really used here. You know, when we talked to Canterbury Circle, I asked about, hey, is the tennis court basketball? Yeah, the kids go over there and they play probably more tennis. They will shoot a little bit the hoop that usually, you know, I can see a hoop easier to be in a backyard or on a driveway than a park. One concern we have to look at this park is it doesn't have parking. And so as we start to put different amenities in, you know, we've got to be careful what we're going to be attracting to the residents close by. And so, you know, to me, this feels like a really overdone. I'm trying to look at some other parks in Highland. Probably, you know, some of the nicer parks we have is that Canterbury Circle one that had a pavilion, had the tennis court. I don't see a lot of other parks. I recognize this neighborhood had a 12-acre of ground, which was bought by all of Highland residents, but I recognize they thought, hey, this is going to be a park. They kind of planned that, and they've been working. They've actually been very good and workable with us. I understand some flexibility, but this just seems, I don't know, I've landscaped my property, and I feel like I have a pretty nice landscaping, and I didn't pay anything near like this. And so I'm having a hard time with the cost.
Well, I mean, I get where the costs are going to be a little bit different from where you're at home because you're not having to get a contractor that's insured and other kinds of things. So the costs begin to go up. I'm not trying to justify the costs in here. The bottom line is when you go out to bid and you get people to bid, you get what you get. And there are some options with having neighbors or scout troops or other people helping that can lower the costs, but you also get what you get. And if you've ever seen scouts go out and lay sod and you want the park to look nice, there's a balance there. Now, putting in trees or spreading the ground covering and stuff like that, I mean, they can't do too much damage there. But if you want the sod to be done right and you want it to look nice quickly, there are some things you have to pay for to get it done right.
So Brian, do you feel, and maybe this is experience, can we not hydroseed versus sod? I mean,
we absolutely can. The issue then becomes it's not usable for a period of time. So hydro seed, you have to stay off it for, if you do it in the fall, you could probably get on it about July or August of the following year. But you can't go out there and use it for any other sports or anything like that. You have to keep people off. That's the difference. I mean, you're paying for certain benefits, and so it would save a significant amount of money if nobody wants to use it for a period of time.
Well, the other problem that we have is, you know, we agree as a council on how much we want to spend.
Yep.
That's public information. It's amazing how many times the bid comes back.
Exactly.
Right about where we're,
yep.
You know, and that's, I don't know how you negotiate with somebody when they have all the information about what we're trying to get done and how much money we have. So, because when I go in to buy a car or when I go in to buy an item, I don't tell them how much money I have in my pocket. And if I don't like the price, I walk out. And it's amazing how the price can come down. But when it comes to public negotiations, it's tough.
It is tough.
Just want to say something while Nathan's looking at costs of a sports court or something. So we're just putting a new sports court into Canterbury Circle. They've had tennis courts and different things there. I don't think they have any particular parking for that park, yet the whole neighborhood came in and said, we'd like you to do this. It's a public park. I guess, can I ask a question of Kelly? What was your feeling about parking? Is that going to be a problem if we had like a little sports court in there? And I'm talking about a single one where 4 people play.
Well, as a neighborhood park, part of the problem that can come from parks is that people have a family reunion. They look at this and they go, oh yeah, this has lots of amenities. And so then you're not talking about 4 cars showing up to play pickleball. You're talking about 30 cars showing up because they want to do a family reunion there because the pickleball court is there and because the playground is there and because of this and because of that. Would you mind coming up to we record this and we just want people to be able to hear the conversation.
We have a home in our cul-de-sac that on probably a monthly occasion hosts wedding receptions. They have a unbelievably beautiful yard, and there are, at any given time on the night of a wedding reception, 100 cars on our street. So, and it's not a big deal to our neighborhood. It's one evening and they come and they go. But I don't know that a pickleball court's going to attract a whole lot more people.
My point wasn't a specific pickleball court. It has to do with the more amenities that are there, the more attractive it becomes for that kind of thing. And so it's the balance. And frankly, $500,000 for this is a lot of money.
No, I agree. I couldn't remember what the budget was for. So when I saw the number, I was like, well, that's a significant amount of money. And then that's why I posed the question, how does the city validate that the builder is spending the city's money, our money, correctly in, I see Decorative Landscape's name on this. Did they provide 3 competitive bids to the city to show us that there are other groups that have bid on this project and what their bids come in at? It's difficult because it is public record, like you said, and all bids are going to come in fairly similar now because you've published what the budget is. So it's a bit challenging, I'm sure. Happy to answer any other questions, but thank you.
One thing that, as a city council, we really have to be careful with staff is making sure that they've got clear enough direction from us on what the amounts are. And we talked about it being $300,000. We gave them, I remember, so take that as far as that goes. I remember us talking that we wanted it somewhere no more than 500, but we wanted it at 300. Well, that goes with giving them, that balance. And this is actually 556,000. That's where the bid is.
That's what they brought down to 499 by taking out the swings and making some changes. So that first page is the one they got, and the second page is the one they negotiated down to.
And so they have tried really hard to keep it within that budget. To me, it really comes down to, I did this with my daughter, said, look, I don't care what you spend your money on for your wedding, but here's your budget. And if you want to put all of that money into a dress, knock yourself out. If you want to, use 10% of it on the wedding reception and put the rest in your pocket, I don't care. Do whatever you want. To me, it feels a little bit similar to what this is. I think as a city, we're trying to help the neighborhood feel like that they're not neglected, that we listened, we cared, but there's a limit with how much money we're willing to put in here. And we're willing to give you whatever you want within that dollar amount and knock yourself out. And if there are things that you can do as a community that could help lower the cost so that you could get more, you know, we just buy the materials and you want to do more stuff, and we keep it within that price range, that would be great. But we also want the quality that would last, and so we'd want those things to be done well, so they stand up for your neighborhood's benefit.
So what if we took this park back and said we're going to do a little bit of redesign work and then put it out for bid? I'm kind of agreeing with Kurt. I don't think we're getting our money's worth here. And this is money that comes out of the sale of the land. I mean, it's city money, basically. So it makes sense to bring it back, redesign a little bit, and put it out to bid and see if we can't get the cost down.
You're just going to affect the time frame for Millhaven. I mean, that would be my...
Well, I think it's more important to do something right than to worry about...
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. I think...
To do that, we got to give staff and
you got to give us something
Millhaven
to
very
go on.
clear direction.
Are these fully grown trees?
2 to 2.5 inch caliper is what it says.
$400 is too much money for a.
That's
2-inch
pretty
caliper.
typical for that.
Huh?
I mean, they're not Home Depot trees. That's pretty typical.
Home Depot trees. What's wrong with Home Depot trees?
Nothing.
The ones I landscape my yard with is $75.
How about Costco trees?
I mean, if you wanted basketball, it's about $33,000. If you want a pickleball, that's going to be another $40,000. I mean, one of the things here
Is that
is
for four?
That's
four
for two.
courts? Two?
Is that 2 pickleball courts?
That's 2.
How about one? We were just talking about one where there's 4 players.
One
Would that be half of that?
But no, Scott, when you're going to have a guy go and lay cement or your post concrete, you might as well just go ahead and get 2 courts in there. I mean, your cost, you're not saving that. I'm in the middle of doing some asphalt work, and the guy says, "Do you want me to just rip all this up? It's going to be cheaper while I'm here than trying to have you come." Once they're set up and going, it's almost cheaper to have them just get it.
Just the cost of material.
But I still think there's some money that come out of the foundation that's earmarked for a pickleball court that could be used for this.
We still want to use that over here.
Yeah, I think we're still trying to do Mountain Ridge Park.
It was not earmarked for this park, though.
Right, so a couple of thoughts. One of the things we're trying to do is make sure this is a neighborhood park. I mean, we're not providing restrooms, we're not providing parking. We're trying to do on-street parking. So you don't want to put a lot of amenities in there, or we're going to end up with other issues that we have in other parks with, people using trees as restrooms and bushes as restrooms, or knocking on neighbors' doors. So that was one of the challenges that we did that. Now, if the council's willing to say, okay, Millhaven, we're under contract, we have your earnest money, we will let you mobilize and start grading and so forth while we work on this design, and if you're willing to give us a budget, then I think that's more than doable, and they're willing to do that. I think that would be a fair compromise.
I could agree to that.
Kelly, if we do something like this and bring your neighborhood in, planning by committee never works. So it's going to have to be you or a specific person that comes in and basically negotiates it or helps work with us. But it can't be the neighborhood.
Because there was an agreement with the neighborhood last time, remember? When we did this, we don't want that, we want that, we don't want that.
And work with us on time frames so that as we talk about certain things.
Just to be clear, you're happy to do it. Are your neighbors happy that you're doing it for
them? Speaking for your neighbors, right?
Right. So council, what's the budget?
So that way, if they get the pitchforks out, they can take them to your house. All right.
So council, what's the budget?
You're the contractor.
And not exceed that.
I'm kind of at least 300. I'd like to even be less than 300. I'm looking at 2 acres. When you go, and I understand it's different than a residential area. I understand what's interesting. I'm looking at decorative landscape, and I actually think the residential arm's the one that did my house. And so I've gone, I'm familiar with this contractor. I just, even at 300, I'm almost coughing at 300 because that's 150,000 an acre. I understand that your irrigation system has to be more beefed up. I understand we're going to be putting walk areas in here. I'm just trying to get a feel. That's kind of where I'm at.
And beefed up is probably a good description because you're going to have more impact to this than you would in your backyard, per se.
Well, your 100 heads, instead of being plastic, are going to be metal. I mean, you're going to be putting different sprinkler heads in. Your sprinkler lines, I don't know if the ground's going to be too much different, but your heads and that will be, you'll probably cost 3 times as much.
And I think the goals here is to make this relatively low maintenance, right? I mean, with a lot of the ground covers and good things, because it's hard for the city staff to maintain everything.
Yes, that's what we were trying to do, but the last time we talked about it was less rock. The council told us less rock, so we're all over the map. So we need some direction. If we're going to do this, we need some direction.
Well, not being a landscaper, not being an architect, not being a contractor, it's tough for me to come up with a number. It's tough as a city to negotiate. That's a tough job because the people you're negotiating with know how much money you have to spend.
Right, and it's tough as staff to hit a moving target.
It's amazing how those numbers come right in at what you have to spend.
So to move this forward, I would ask that we give them the 500,000 max number for them to work with. That Kelly is the only person from the subdivision that's there. I think we can have somebody from city council. Wouldn't hurt to have them so that we're keeping them engaged with it and let staff work from there so they've got somewhere to go to get answers quickly and make sure that they're on track so that they're not being held out in the open with their belly showing or whatever you want to call that. But they need some support on this, and I think if we have something like that, we can get it moving.
The struggle I'm having is that I don't know how we come up with 500,000 is the right number.
We have to pick a number from somewhere, and I think that we've got. We've got some bids for this. If they can deliver more than what's here for the same price, then let it move.
Well, it's either that or a list of amenities or something that you want that we can.
Or that we're going to pull out.
Yeah, I mean it's.
I would agree with that. I wouldn't go over 500,000, but I think there's ways to get some cost savings in this, and I'd like to see some other amenities. I really would like to see at least a pickleball court in there, or some other amenity here. I think it's really.
Well, let's go to Kelly and see what the neighborhood would like, and let's go with that, and it's really hard for me to say we need to set it on a max of 500 grand because that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, especially relative to what we put into other parks.
Well, Beacon Hills was exorbitantly expensive as well, but there was a lot more land, a lot of excavation that happened there.
And there's a chunk of ground prep for this as well.
Yeah.
So staff, is that?
We'll do our best.
Well, no, is that clear? See, this is where we got in our trouble before, is also we have one council member say 500, I'm 300. And so I'm not okay at 500. I mean, and this is where we've gotten kind of caught. Last time is we talked, I said 3, I think someone else said 5, and so the staff took off at 500,000. And
I
so
don't think staff took off at 500,000, but obviously the developer was here, heard the number, and that's what came in.
That's the direction we gave him.
Is it?
As staff.
As
Because that's what we understood.
Not to exceed.
Because that's what we understood from the council.
So if a $500,000 project comes back, I am not in favor. It's overkill for 2 acres.
What if 500,000 comes back with more amenities? Still overkill?
Yeah, I think we have to be responsible to all the other residents. I mean, we have other parks that need other amenities. We can't just go and say this 1 2-acre park has every amenity. We have the splash pad, we got pickleball, we try to put it all on 2 acres. I mean, we've got Mountain Ridge Park we're trying to do. We've got, I don't know if it'll ever come about, but we're going to be having some money set aside for it. I mean, I just think we have to be responsible in all of our parks.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't think we're putting a splash pad in here. I think the only thing we've talked about just so far is maybe a basketball thing that kind of got shot down, but maybe a pickleball court or some other amenity here. And I just think we need to keep it under 500,000. I mean, I'd go for a lower amount, Kurt. I'd support that if it's a possibility. I don't know. I'm not a landscaper.
I mean, their costs are consistent with the bids we've gotten for Mountain Ridge and with the rebuild in Canterbury Circle. So I don't think they are that far off.
But this is only one bid, correct?
Correct, but in comparing them to the other ones and comparing what Blue Line did for the original plan, comparing with the bid to rebuild Canterbury Circle and the preliminary estimates for Mountain Ridge, they're pretty close. They're not.
If they want to build a parade home, they're hot to trot. So, we give them a max 300,000. Who knows what they might be able to come up with? Yeah. They're up against the wall.
The problem that I have with 300,000 is if you go through here, I mean, I've gone through this trying to figure out where you're going to take big chunks.
Yeah.
We've had people come to the city council that have said, well, why are you increasing public safety? You take that 700,000 and pull it out of your budget. I mean, we got an $8 million budget, pull it out. Well, the problem is there's certain things you have to do and other pieces, and I'm looking at it thinking,
but do we really
where would
need
we pull the 200,000?
Trees?
Well, you're gonna have less trees.
No, I mean, what if we had the same number of trees and they were $150 a piece?
So the trees that we bought for here are 1.5 caliper. Those were $200 trees that we have for our own city Arbor Day sale.
Okay, it's $200.
Those are not as big as these trees. So we can do that. We're just getting smaller trees and it will take longer for the park to look like a park. We can do that. That's exactly the kind of thing we can do. Is that the right thing to do? Is the neighborhood going to be happy with 1.5 caliper trees?
Who's the buyer at Costco? Can we talk to those people?
I'm totally with you.
So we're the buyer, Brian. We're the buyer here. I would take out. You have 2 pavilions at 34,000. You could take out one and be 17 saving. As you come down, you got some other areas. I mean, I think your walkway's reasonable. Maybe we do go. We don't have to get 2 to 2.5 inch trees. We could save, because that's at 30,000. We could say, we could do a mixture of them. I'm just saying, I think there's a number of different, it's, as you come in here for the cobblestones, $50,000, $47,500. I'm just going, it's hard because maybe I negotiate better than some. It's hard just to see these costs. I'm just saying, they came to 365. I think if we did 300, we could back in 65 or maybe get some other bids.
To me, I agree with what you're saying, but there's an expectation that we have set. Now we're going to have to reset an expectation of what it is. And if we want to go back and change that expectation, then let's do it. That's the only way that we're going to be able to pull out of this some chunks of money.
Yeah, my feeling is this,
of any significance. Yeah. I mean, we can pull some out.
I just think we need to pull this back in-house, and I think we need to have the staff meet with a representative from the neighborhood, find out exactly what amenities there can be kind of a compromise on what they'd like and what kind of some costs, and have the staff come back, maybe with some competitive bids. I mean, we're having the developer at this time with this one bid do it himself. Is that right? Isn't Millhaven putting this in, basically?
Correct. That's the decision the council made.
Yeah, and that's the decision we made in the past. Why don't we change that and put this a
that.
competitive bid and see if we can't get the cost down, but get some other amenities? It just seems to me the logical thing to do.
We certainly can do that. As we discussed, if we do it and bid it ourselves, the cost of the park will most likely go up. Right, Todd?
We will get more bids, but developers historically have gotten better bids than we do because they can negotiate. But this is a little different because we're giving them a number. So, I mean, if we gave them a specific number of 300,000, they would go out and do the best they can with that. They're giving us a very nice park for 500,000 right now. So you can tell them 300 and then they will hit that. Historically, developers have gotten better prices than we have because we have to bid a certain way. They can negotiate.
You're gonna need to come up to the mic just so that we have it on record.
But we can close on the property and then go through a design process and bid it and see what happens.
Decorative landscaping is the most expensive landscaper in Utah County. When I did my yard, I received several, I think 6 or 7 different landscaping bids. Decorative was the most expensive. Kerry Christensen's out there, if he's still working. I don't know if he's still doing something. He's fantastic. There's other ones out there that can do the same job. It's already plotted out, it's mapped out. Maybe you pay him for the mapping and figure out how to do this within the cost and the means that we're willing to, because we have so many parks to do. We have so much open space. If you keep spending our money, we're not going to have any to take care of our families. Our taxes are going to be through the roof. Let's bring it down, let's fix it, let's make it so it's not so much money. We're spending so much money. I don't know, some of you guys have $1 million homes, that's great. I don't. And I have 5 kids to feed and 5 kids to put through college, and I have to go to work. As much as you guys keep doing what you're doing and spending more money, I have to go to work. Don't do this to us and our families. Keep the cost down and find a better way. There's always a better way. We don't need to keep spending everybody's money. We can accomplish what we need to. We can do it within our means. That's all I have to say. Please don't. Just find a better way. Find somebody else. Thanks.
Wayne, did you want to talk about park?
What's that?
Wayne Tanaka, Highland resident. When you think about the end result of this plan, I would like you all to consider the maintenance and upkeep. For example, hardscape does not require water. Lawns require water, sprinkler heads, cleaning filters, etc., etc. I don't think the residents or the council has any idea what goes on a daily basis to maintain a city park. There are people every day checking filters on the sprinkler boxes because of dirt and debris that gets in there. That's why you see brown spots. It's not because they're not getting watered because they got a broken sprinkler head. I don't know if you realize that over 680 sprinkler heads were replaced and repaired last calendar year. by the maintenance department. You know how much that takes, the time to, and the cost. Some sprinklers heads cost $100. So I would like you to be thinking in terms of not grass, even fewer trees. You have to maintain the trees, insecticide, fungicides, all that stuff. I'm sure you could do with a few less trees. I don't think the neighborhood would miss 30 more trees. You know, in the bigger picture, it's going to be, some trees get really big. It'd be great. So my point is maintenance and upkeep of a park. There's other alternatives that make it look nice and stuff without having have to water things and cut the grass. You have to cut the grass. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks. Did he say Wayne Tanaka when he got up? Okay. Sorry, Wayne.
Wayne, from my experience, trees are a lot cheaper to maintain than grass is. So putting more trees in there lowers the cost of watering, and you don't have to mow your tree every day.
Well, we don't need to have that discussion necessarily. Let's give staff some direction so they can go do what they need to do.
Well, for me, the bottom line is we got to give them a number to work with.
I'd give them 300,000.
I'm uncomfortable with 300,000 from the perspective I don't believe, based upon what I've seen, that we can deliver what we had in the ballpark of what we had set expectations for in this neighborhood.
I'll bid 300,000 and a player to be named later.
Done.
And a player to be named later.
The first draft pick.
I think you're right. So can we just arrive at a number and give staff direction?
We need to split the difference.
Let's split the difference. Let's go 400,000.
400,000.
Okay, let's move it forward.
You good with 4?
Okay, so
How about split between 4 and 3? You go 350. That's how I negotiate.
One final question. Are you wanting Mill Havens to still build this, or are you wanting us to go out?
I lean towards going out and getting some other bids just to see. And I'd talk to the neighborhood and see if there's some other amenities you can put in there and then send it out to bid. I mean,
so this is
Todd may be 100% right that it's going to cost more than the 500,000, but I'd like to see some other bids personally.
So it's really not just to see. It's either we ask
It's
them
one
to
or the
bid.
other. I mean, we have to.
Well, we can ask the developer to do some bidding, can we not?
Yeah, because we always could come back to this bid.
I mean, it's just like Kurt's business, right? If you go out, you have your preferred contractors, and they're going to give you prices that are different than others. So they may have a deal with Decorative Landscaping or XYZ Landscaping, whoever it is, saying, hey, we work with you on XYZ projects and we'll price it for this amount.
Yeah, and the problem with the statement that decorative landscape is the most expensive is it may be for residential, and they may love to do big jobs, and so they charge a little bit more when it becomes a residential, but they're very competitive on a commercial. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. It's not always black and white that they're cheaper here, they're always the most expensive. It's a perspective. And I'm not a landscaper, and I haven't used those services recently, so I wouldn't know.
See, the problem is, and our residents have put their finger on it, and that is, it's really easy for us to sit here and say, oh, let's just go with the 500,000. It's not our money. It's their money. And that's
Well,
what...
I actually live in the city, though.
Yeah, and I do too.
It's my money, too.
But the thing of it is, I think we have to be careful with our residents' money. I think we really do.
I agree 100%. And it's not easy for me to say 500 when I know that any money that was saved goes toward another park. And we don't have enough money for the other parks as it is.
And I'm not being critical of the city staff here. They have a tough job in trying to negotiate this. But somehow we need to get it down into the $300,000-$400,000 range.
So we agreed there's 400?
I like 400.
Who said that?
I did.
Scott?
Yeah.
So is there a motion?
I agree with Kurt. Let's go with 350.
I second the 350.
Okay, Mayor, split the...
375.
I've never seen us negotiate like this, but.
So is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that it's 400, that we give direction to staff to keep it under $400,000.
I'll second it.
So moved and seconded.
I'd like to do a substitute motion that would be 350,000.
And I'll second it.
Okay, now we have a substitute motion, 350.
So Mayor, the council will vote on whether to substitute the motion now.
Okay, right. So there is a substitute motion.
So we're only voting on this, we're not voting on the substitute motion, only if we're going to accept a substitute motion.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're voting on whether or not to accept a substitute motion.
I can't get that, no.
And then we'll discuss that motion.
You guys get that?
No, it's not showing.
It's
for
not
me.
showing.
Hang on a second. Just do a
Oh, yeah, I
refresh
gotta
here.
refresh. Yeah, wait.
What? Do you want to just
Oh,
do this
she's-
paper?
I can't bring it up for some reason.
Give
I
her a
can't either.
second. She hasn't.
I'm not sure why it's not working. You can just do a voice.
Okay, so we're going to do roll call because there's 4. So Brian?
No.
Scott?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm going to vote no. I would personally be amenable to 375, just so you know.
How about 376?
Do you want to remake the motion then, or we're on the motion of 400?
So we're back on the 400, and I will vote no on 400. Just
All right, I amend my motion to 375.
I'll second it.
moved and seconded, 375.
Seems like we're having an auction.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So where are we with who's building it?
No, let's get this vote going, and then we'll take the next step.
Yeah.
I think we should leave that to the city staff to decide whether we build it or whether the developer does.
I don't think can we build it for 3?
Yeah.
What?
Well, he needs to have a, yeah.
The issue is you're going to, it has more to do with what you're willing to get for the amount of money. So we're not willing to say, we haven't stated these are the amenities you have to have, go out for a bid. We're saying, here's the budget, whoever brings the best amenities is going to win it. If you bring the same amenities and you're a lower price, then that's great.
Right, but we're
Kelly, if you're going to speak, you have to come to the podium. And just so everybody here is clear, I do not have an opposition to resident comment, but we cannot run a meeting and get out before midnight if everybody just chimes in whenever they want to. We need to let the council have a discussion. So this will be the last. And you have 2 minutes.
I just think it's healthy for the builder. I'm not advocating that the city take this back over and do this. What I'm advocating for is that the city hold the builder accountable to a bid process for the park, for the described amenities that are currently there, and then look at what it would be to remove some of those amenities if you choose.
But now we're dictating how the builder does his business. A private company does their business.
But you're dictating it because it's the city's money, right?
But the way we're talking about doing it is let them go run. Let them go run with what they want. We could have a separate bid going somewhere else and compare those two, which is it's similar to what you're asking for. It's just not being run through them.
But that's not how our purchase contract reads. for the land.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and
Correct.
I don't know how the purchase contract reads,
Yes,
but I just want to make sure that the city is getting the most for their dollars. And I completely would agree with the council and how you're going about this, but the only recommendation that I thought we could make is asking the developer to go through a bid process for the park. So that's all I have to say.
So council, we have a motion. Do we have, you want to attach any directions to that on the price?
I'm leaving it in staff's hands to move forward with it.
Because we're assuming that we're saving things like startup and other costs by having their crews already on site. That's what we're saving.
Right, the mobilization costs and things like that were not
Yes.
listed in here.
Right.
So what's the final motion? I'm a little confused.
375 is what, that we,
That's our maximum.
And I'll second that.
amount.
Yeah.
And let staff decide how to proceed to get the best use of our money for
Yeah,
that.
they're gonna work with Kurt and they're gonna work with,
Kelly.
Kelly.
Kurt, are you okay with that?
We voting? Is that a
Are
vote?
you okay
Well,
with
that's
being
part of the
that?
motion is they get to work with Kelly and with Kurt.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
375.
Okay.
Not okay necessarily at the 375.
Well, that's all
That's
one
an
part.
option exceed, right?
Team together, team apart, right? We make a decision and we move forward. So,
All right, so the motion is not to exceed 375, that staff will work with Kelly and Kurt and determine the best way forward on proceeding with this park. That is the motion. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Still not coming up.
Yeah, it's not.
So let's just voice vote.
Yes.
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 Well, you don't get a vote,
Yes.
Mayor, until,
Yes.
unless it's,
so can I add something real
Yes.
quick? So we've been working on this project a long time, and we've tried to make incremental decisions as we go on. And I understand that decisions can be changed and concerns are raised up. And one of the things we try to do as staff is try to be responsive, but if we don't know concerns before the meeting, we can't be responsive. So and we have a lot on our plates. And so I really ask the council that if we have concerns about amenities, about what costs are for certain amenities and how much we're spending, please let us know so we can get you the information so that our meetings can be productive. I think that's a fair ask from staff, because we really want to serve the council and get you that information, especially when we spent this amount of time and we have a relationship with Millhaven. Not just staff, but you as a council have a relationship with Millhaven that we want to preserve here in the future, and the residents do. And I think, as Scott mentioned, I think it's good if we're able to allow them to keep moving through the process. We've already held a pre-con with them and allow them to keep moving. We realize it's our land. As long as we have our bonding and stuff in place, I think we'll be okay to do that. But I really would ask you guys to get with us ahead of time. And if you have concerns and questions, allow us at least to get the research done so we can provide you that information.
I think it's good advice. I mean, it's a negative impact on us as a council if staff is negotiating in good faith and they now have to go back and explain that it's not the way that there's been a lot of money and time and effort and resources put into something and it's not going to happen the way it was originally discussed. There's no question that we have to have the ability, and I'm glad, Kurt, you're bringing up the issues. It's not that kind of thing. It's really timing of some of these issues, and we're not always going to do it right. But I think
So I appreciate, some of the concern, I thought it was 300. This is where it even happened tonight, where I'm over here at 300, and all of a sudden we start moving forward at 5, and I'm going, well, hold it, that's where I thought we were at a couple of months ago, is that we were at 300, and all of a sudden, and I believe it's also important the public hears our discussions instead of always having it offline trying to do discussions, that this needs to be a public, here we have things about being everything public and open, but yet we want to negotiate, and I understand getting information, but to me, when I looked at this was, was more, hey, here's our bid, we need to discuss that tonight in city council, versus getting with staff and changing around the bid. So.
Fair.
Sorry, we are done with that one. Next item is, actually Todd's here. We can just go ahead with number 6 now.
Mayor, Council, so on the table right now, we have an agreement with Lehi City. It's a cooperative agreement between us and Lehi City, and there's one other entity involved because of some land trades. But part of the agreement is basically Dry Creek. Where's the pointer? Right there. Laser pointer. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of the major items that this agreement is basically encompassing. I'll go first. Let's start here. This is the Dry Creek Lake area. In blue is where the lake will actually be. Part of the agreement is basically saying that Lehi City will own, not own the property, but basically maintain the reservoir, all of the piping, the water, all the way to the fence on the east side. They will maintain the property. So that's the first item in the agreement. And I'm just going to go down through. Hopefully you all have the agreement in front of you. Part of this agreement also is establishing the boundary line. This is the boundary line. The 1999 agreement basically said that it would follow the center line of the channel. When the property in question annexed into Highland, the property owners actually owned to basically where you see the yellow, the pink area. And so they didn't go to the center line of the channel. They actually went to the property line on this side. So part of this agreement would be agreeing to a municipal boundary adjustment down the center of the lake. It would come underneath the roads, very close to where the inlet is, and then it would go out the dam where the outlet structure is. So this is one of the items in the agreement. Going back, deeding property. So Highland City owns this parcel here. Autumn Ridge is LLC, private ownership of all this property up here. They actually own the parcel that right in here in question. As part of this agreement, we would be doing a land swap. We would be getting this green property here and giving Autumn Ridge this property. The additional square footage here in purple would be going to Autumn Ridge for the property, the right-of-way for 1200 East in Lehi, and that property would go to Lehi. As part of that, we would receive as Highland City a compensation of $400,000 for that property. And that's all encompassed in this agreement. Also part of the agreement is that we would be giving Lehi City an easement in yellow for the pipeline coming out of the reservoir to 1200 East, and then they would continue on that pipeline for their pressurized irrigation. The blue line next to it is a 20-foot just temporary construction easement. As part of the agreement, it specifically says that they will avoid all trees at all costs that are Highland City's. So it is highly vegetated through there, but there's currently a trail. So they're going to try to stick to that trail as best they can. When the pipe goes in, they actually will install an asphalt trail over the top of their pipe that will ultimately be a Highland City trail. We will own and maintain that moving forward.
And so they'll pay for the trail.
They'll pay for the trail. With that, we would have an access. We currently do have an access to our lift station right here, but now we would have access all the way to this flat area that in the future we could potentially have an access to an open area and have a parking lot, whatever it may be. So that's all future, but we have the ability to do it now. Also part of that, if we go back to this, I don't have their actual plan, but the road to the lake actually comes down the hill and it wraps around. Part of the agreement is they would allow us in the future to possibly connect to this road and have access below the dam off of that, but we would have to negotiate that with North Utah County Water Conservancy District. They are the landowner. But Lehi City specifically says they don't have any issue with that as part of the agreement. Moving on, those are the main things. You can continue on with some of the contract language, and this is more on the attorney's side, but those are the engineering related issues with the agreement. Any questions?
So if we connect to that road that you just mentioned, they wouldn't want to charge us for 100,000? I'm just being funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in order to connect to that road, that is North Utah County Water Conservancy District property. We need to gain access and approval from them. In the agreement, what Lehi is stating, because they're building the road and they're building the parking, they don't have a problem with us connecting into that amenity that they're putting in. That was why I think it was put in the agreement. Is that correct, Todd?
Correct. Yep. They're just basically making a statement in the agreement that they're okay with that connection.
You know, one other thing that was a statement in the agreement is if this, the Dry Creek Lake becomes popular and there's a time that they might want to charge a use fee, they'll be able to, in the agreement it states that if North Utah County Water Conservancy District does not charge Lehi residents to access it because Lehi's put all the amenities in, Highland residents will also benefit the same as Lehi residents upon a use fee. So if they weren't going to charge Lehi residents use fee, Highland residents will not get charged a use fee. But if they do charge Lehi, you know, everyone going down there, then we would be subject to that.
The exact language says Highland residents will be treated the same as Lehi residents pertaining to entrance or usage fee for the use of the reservoir or project area. So
I think we can pretty much assume that this is going to be a popular attraction.
I think so.
Yeah, that's a really good bet.
So with this being said, this is the agreement. We don't have any engineering in place. Part of the agreement says that they will submit plans to us. We will review them, make sure everything is good, make sure the pipes are where they need to be, trail is where it needs to be. We'll go through that process as far as review, but it says that per the agreement, they will submit all plans to Highland City for review. So
I'd like to make a comment. I want to appreciate all the work that the staff and especially Todd has made with the negotiations with Lehi City on this. And I really appreciate all the work that Councilman Osler, you spent many hours with neighborhood meetings in the city of Lehi and Highland, so I appreciate all of that. And you know, we've discussed a lot of this agreement. I think it's much improved. And I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve this cooperative agreement between the city of Lehi and the city of Highland as stated in the agreement.
If there's a second for that motion,
I'll second that.
Then I will allow public input. This is just discretionary, but I'm just asking for public input before we further discuss or vote. So Brandon, if you have something to add, please do. Or anyone else.
Make this really quick. I drove for 13 years on 1200 East going to work and coming back from work, and that is an extremely dangerous street right where the crest is, the property that Dean Wallace owns. So I don't know if this has come into discussion, and I know this is very complicated, but that road needs to be widened, and so that part of this is something that may not have actually been thought of that much, but there's literally 18 inches of road of pedestrian traffic area there, and many times I've seen cars come over there and kids are coming up there on bikes and they swerve. So part of this
can I address that, Mayor?
Yeah, it's really good that Todd tells you this.
So that is the main purpose of Lehi entering this agreement. The only reason that we were pulled in for that specific reason is to get the property. Dean Wallace was not willing to give up the right-of-way for that widening, but by us negotiating with Lehi City and coming to this agreement and being able to land swap this property right here in pink for the right-of-way, they now can do that.
Okay.
So that's the whole purpose of this. It was actually the Lehi City Roads Department that started this negotiation because they need to finish up 1200 East.
It's only this portion of the agreement that this is applicable. This was we were going to do an agreement for some right-of-way, But this whole piece of land swap and everything has everything to do with what you just described.
Okay.
That is the only reason why those pieces were added in. There wasn't going to be no land swap. And frankly, it's a huge win for us because we get a nice flat piece of ground that'll be a parking lot away from your subdivision.
And the part you're swapping is like on a 45-degree angle, so it's
Exactly.
unusable for anything except scrub oak, so,
Exactly.
okay.
It's really a win-win in looking at this. Like Councilman Smith mentioned, Councilman Osler and I have been meeting with Lehi for many, many months. And this is a win-win for everyone involved. So.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate, Brent also served on the committee for his, the Canterbury North, and I appreciate Brent's service there as we had Sam down in the Highland Hollows and Cal Far also that spent a lot of hours, so thank you there. As we kind of look, so some questions maybe I might have for Tim, but as we look at this property swap and we look at the plat map of Highland Hollow, what's interesting is we look down in the pink area here, just this is kind of for maybe the residents here, when Highland Hollow subdivision was recorded, it actually showed a trail coming from 1200 East going up towards the Murdoch Canal, or the Murdoch Trail. So this is not a new proposed trail. This is a trail that's actually on Mountain Land Association of Governments plan that they have proposed. This trail, if Lehi can get it all put together, will go all the way down into the town center of Lehi if they can get it all put together. Like they mentioned, Mr. Wallace has been, Dean Wallace up there, they've been negotiating with him. We are treating a very flat piece of property which would allow us to come in if we wanted to park or just to have a part of our park. Highland owns 50 acres down in this area. So it's a pristine area for Highland. It's a gorgeous area, but I think as someone mentioned, the hillside coming from 1200 East side is on an angle about 45 degrees where we are trading that. I do have a question for Tim, our attorney, is since this is dealing with the Highland Hollows plat, do we need to be concerned about, and in their plat, the property we are trading or selling states park trails and public open space as part of it. Some of it they have a parking and trail in. Do we need to be concerned about any plat amendment or anything with this?
That's something I can look into for you.
We need, as part of our motion, do we need to worry about that as a plat amendment as part of our motion?
Not for the approval of this, because any housekeeping in terms of vacation or amendment could be done subsequent to the approval of the agreement.
And we're just approving the cooperative agreement between the two cities to work this out. Again, I think it's a real win-win for both cities, but I think we get some nice things, a trail, nice piece of property, and $400,000. I think you've done a wonderful job negotiating.
Yeah, it was a lot of good work by Kurt and staff. Kurt and
I
Todd.
second that. So we have a motion and a
Ready
second.
for a motion?
Yeah,
Or do
we
we
have a
have
motion
one?
and a second. Are we ready to vote? It's approved unanimously. Is that true?
Even Ed Dennis voted for it.
Let's just do a roll call.
Okay,
real quick.
let's do it.
Kurt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, done. All right, next item. Approve a contract with Planning Solutions for the preparation of a moderate income housing element of the general plan. Nathan?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This past legislative session, Senate Bill 34 was passed. One of the things it did, this is kind of culmination of a couple years worth of work, required adoption of a moderate income housing plan that is found in the general plan of the community's general plan of each community. Ours was last updated in 2008, requires update as of December 1st, 2019. Adds elements that reinforce transportation efficient land use into the city's general plan. There's a minimum of 3 specific strategies that are outlined in state code. They're in your reports that we have to adopt, and we have to do report on our progress on those strategies that we choose. That report has to be done in 2020. It does, we require an annual review prior to that, prior to this legislative change. It was a biannual review, if you remember those. We would do those every 2 years. And we were required to update our this element of our general plan every 5 years. If you recall, we had originally had plans to do a general plan update. This was going to be part of that general plan update. Obviously, we didn't fund that. Our original plan was to do that as staff. We quickly got into it and realized that we're not experts, and we're really not experts on any of the specific strategies, and realized that we were going to need help to meet the deadline and to be able to educate the council and the planning commission on the different strategies and be able to help guide the council on the strategies to choose. The legislature did include some teeth in this bill that hasn't been included in the past. There's some transportation improvement funds that the city would not be eligible for if we did not do this plan and the strategies. Now, how that impacts Highland, we don't know yet. That's one of the things that we've asked the consultants to track down as part of the project is how would this impact Highland financially? Off the top of our heads, we came up with a couple projects that could potentially impact Highland. Those funds are primarily used for state road capacity projects, meaning you widen roads to increase capacity. That would include something like SR 92, primarily east of where it's been 74, where it's been widened, or even west. We've heard rumblings that that might happen. Or 74 may or may not qualify. We've heard some in the MAG 50, Transportation 50 plan. There's actually been identified to widen it up to Canal Boulevard from Main Street or State Street in American Fork. It's Main Street, State Street, Main Street, same street. To widen it from there to 9600 North or Canal Boulevard, I don't remember which one off the top of my head, to widen it there. Another potential in the future would be North County Boulevard. So as part of this project, we'll go in and find out how funding would be and whether or not those would, those type of projects would use that type of funding, potentially use that type of funding. So Planning Solutions, John Jansen is the lead on this project. If you remember him, he helped us with the Town Center project. We held a couple work sessions a few years ago. Meg Ryan, she works for the Utah League of Cities and Towns. She was one of the representatives from the league that worked with the legislatures in drafting this bill. And so she was in the room when the bill was drafted. Those are the two folks that will be working on this project. And John has over 30 years as a planning director. He's written multiple housing elements. Meg has assisted also and written many housing elements. The scope of work includes gathering the key statistics that we require to gather. We have education and strategy selection presentations with the council and the planning commission, and they'll be here for adoption with the planning commission and city council, and they'll also prepare the state report for submittal by December 1st. The maximum not to exceed cost is $10,000. In talking with them, and we believe that's a fair price. We put an emphasis on the education component to bring the planning commission staff and the council along in what this bill means and what this law means for us as a city. So we did, as you know, we did not budget for this, so it would have to come out of previous year earnings, and be happy to answer any questions that you have on it.
I just have one comment. When this legislation passed, I looked through it, and I found 3 or 4 possible items that we could pick from out of the 22, where we have to pick 3, and that's state code. We're supposed to do this. I think it's smart to get some expert eyes on it to help us not make a mistake. But anyway, we're really limited in the options that are available to us. And if we need to, in order to comply, I think we need to do it early, because we would have to pass some ordinances in maybe some cases to comply before December 1st.
Well, one of the things that we did is reach out to MAG for their help. We got pointed to some websites. We looked at, it's kind of odd that Department of Workforce Services actually reviews this stuff. John does have a relationship with them, which is nice, so he kind of knows what they're looking for in the plans. He's had some plans prepared and reviewed by them, which is helpful. Another piece, I did have a question about what is moderate income housing. Basically what they do is they take the, how it's defined is they take what the income of Utah County is and compare that to the average price of housing in Highland. And can that person afford the average price, whether it's a rental like a accessory dwelling unit or purchase or whatever in Highland, and then we develop strategies to try to close that gap.
I mean, realistically, there's not much we can do.
Yeah, so that's, we spent half an hour talking to John about that. And he has some experience working with similar cities in our position, like Heber, and Meg has worked with Park City and others in our position, and he has some ideas that he can explore with the council.
I think the really interesting side is, if we don't do it, what's our cost? And I asked Gary, our financial director, have we been receiving any of this TIF funds?
And we wouldn't until it depends how a project is funded.
But as I looked, so Gary, in 2005, they had this transportation fund that was created that was supposed to be shared amongst the cities that had these highways. Are you familiar with, since 2005, if we've ever been able to benefit by this money?
No.
So as we go forward, I know, I understand we're trying to do this, but I'm going, we haven't benefited since 2005, and there was a fund that was put in place then. And I'm not saying we can't. Maybe it's when I looked it up in the act, it's for state highway, it's for state roads and highways. So I'm going, okay, they're going to tell us we can't improve SR 92, which doesn't just affect Highland, but we have Alpine that comes through it, and Cedar Hills, and I think we just got to make sure we're wise in what we're trying to do. If we can meet the assessments, I don't want to go change all of our ordinances because we're trying to chase after some funds we've never had, down the future.
I don't think we view this as chasing it. The state mandates that we do this, and their punishment, if you want to use it that way, is if you don't do this, we're going to take this from you. Well, it doesn't matter if there's no funds to take, they still ask us to do this. If we don't comply, then we give more ammunition to the people that want to put more onerous things, because in the legislation, the legislators almost tied our B&C monies to this. This was a compromise that the league worked out to get to here, and I just wouldn't, I don't want to.
It's very frustrating.
Antagonizing to them.
Right, well, I understand that.
So
it's very frustrating when they're forcing us to spend $10,000 on something that we really have very little control over.
Correct.
And I have a really big problem with it. It really gives me a lot of heartburn, because I have a lot of friends that are realtors and developers and different things, but I think they have far too much influence on our legislature. And I think MIH is a code word for high density. And you know, there's plenty of high density around us. I think that Highland, I have the citizens come in here all the time, they talk to me privately, they come to these meetings, they don't want high density. They don't want more traffic. They don't want the congestion and stuff. And you drive through Utah County and it's getting horrendous. It's interesting, I spent the last 3 days of the last weekend, that's why I didn't communicate with you guys a lot on some of these questions I had, in Connecticut. And, you know, you can, whatever you think of the politics in Connecticut, but they had Interstate 95 that connects New York and Boston, 4 lanes.
Yep.
It's 4 lanes. We have a 12-lane highway, Interstate 15. I sat at a dinner party with some people who had been to Saratoga Springs, and they were shocked at the number of townhomes in there and the congestion. So I think my feeling is, if I'm not going to get arrested or put into jail or fined for not following this state mandate, I'm going to vote against this, because this is a rabbit hole that's going to perhaps push in a lot of high density from some of these people into the city. And people don't want it. We've already got the developmental center, which is higher density than I like. We've already got the town center. We've got Sky Ridge. The rest of the people want things to be stay at R140. And so if we agree to this, it seems to me like people are going to come and say, oh, in your master plan it says we can have this higher density here and there. I think this is wrong. I think this is a wrong thing that the state legislature's done, and I can't in good conscience represent the people of Highland and vote for this. So, you know, if I get put in prison because I'm not doing the right thing here, I'm voting against this.
Did you get all that on the recording so that we can pass that forward to Chief William?
I like to follow the law, but I just think this is wrong.
So we can't change the law. If you look at these, and I've looked at them for a while, there are things we can do that are consistent with what we're doing now, as long as we frame them right, because there's some weasel words like this or that. And I think it's worth putting the time in so that we can do this and it works for us. If I thought that we were going to be forced to be, you know, condos everywhere, I would be making a bigger stink. But I can see and hear options for us to do what we're doing if we just do some little tweaks to things like the accessory
Mayor,
dwelling thing.
can't we do those things without hiring a $10,000 consultant?
Consultant?
I don't know. Staff is really, really overworked. So this is something they're not familiar with. They're just asking for help to do it right. So do you want, Nathan, what do you want to put off his plate?
Seems like it ought to be a boilerplate. Can't you just give us the boilerplate and charge us $1,000 and that'd be it?
It can't be boilerplate. It's new legislation. So I'm personally in favor of this, because to me it's just saying, okay, Nathan, here's one more, or staff, here's one more thing you have to do before the end of the year that you didn't plan on doing when the year started. And we're just paying somebody to help him get it done instead of him spending his time on that versus the other. His stack already overflows, right? We just gave him more work today because we said, okay, go redo this park thing. So I'm okay with looking into it. I can see some paths forward for us where it isn't going to impact us significantly, as long as we go through the process and frame things right. So there's the 4 items that I can see where we're in maybe substantial compliance today. I don't know the legalities of it, but if it was me, that's where I would.
So haven't we already met the criteria here, though, like on F and things?
There are, but we're just paying somebody to help Nathan do something he doesn't have time to do. That's how I'm viewing it.
One of the things when this came through before, same heartache that we're talking about here, and one of the things that we did that allowed us to comply with it better was putting apartments in people's basements.
Right.
And it was good for Highland, and it allowed us to move forward in a place where it didn't change who we are per se, but it did give us some ability to meet some of the requirements that they were pushing at us before. I would like to know if there are other kinds of things. So we just approved Ridgecrest, is that what they're called?
Ridgeview.
Ridgeview. We just approved Ridgeview. There's got to be a lot there that would meet the requirements that we're looking in here. As I've looked through it and I've been involved in the ULCT meetings, to me it feels like a lot of the stuff that was approved there would cover it. And I would like to know if it does or if it doesn't. And I don't believe our internal staff has the time to dig into that. It's a whole new area that they'd have to do.
It just seems to me like they keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And it's Agenda 21. It's you know, I was very upset with Jake Andrick, who really sponsored this bill.
Sponsored and pushing it. Yep.
He's supposed to be a conservative.
The BNC money, he wanted to tie.
I know. He was wrong.
That would have hurt us.
But we have enough high density in this county. I'm not sure what we're trying to create. I mean, they come and say, we need more housing, we need more housing. But, you know, why can't we have some communities that have lower density? It's quality of life.
Their argument is, here's a problem, that we don't have enough housing, we've got a shortage. It's nationwide. It is not a Utah issue. It is nationwide in all the cities. And other than Detroit, nobody wants, never mind. But it's an issue that is not just here. I mean, go try to...
But it's acute in Utah, and I understand that, but...
It's acute in California, too, and all the other high-tech. Seattle, you can't get anything either. I mean...
But the reality is, we are a subset of the state.
Exactly.
And we have to do what they tell us. I mean, we can't be our own city. And that's what's so frustrating.
Our pushback is through the Utah League of City and Towns, because as a organization, we have been able to get some help in that. To me, this is what we're talking about here tonight in this, is being able to find a way that our staff doesn't have to go out and figure this out. We can come up to speed without them taking their time away from other stuff. And to me, that's worth this time. And if they can help us guide it so we're not having to change our rules that we already have in place and meet the guidelines, great. And if we can't, then we can decide whether we want to agree to what they're doing or not and push back at that point in time. But we got to have that information in front of us, because we can go back and say, we meet it. We don't have to make any changes from what we're currently at, and we're meeting it and exceeding it. Or we're not, and what do we do about it?
Here's an example of one that may or may not that I've discussed with John. So we have planned on updating our basement apartment. Right now, I'm just going to be real short. Right now, its conditional use permit requires its own separate utilities. That's a challenge. You know, who's going to dig their own water and sewer lines for a basement apartment? That doesn't make any sense. So we can amend that, and that would meet one of these that says, you know, make it easier to do that. Okay, we did that. So instead of doing it right now, what our thought process was, well, maybe we do that in February, so we can show progress that we're trying to do.
So Nathan, I know you're really busy, and I want to be sensitive about this, but as you bring that up, it appears we have a solution without paying the $10,000.
That's one of three.
So we've got, now let's go find the other two while we're talking.
Yeah, but I can't, exactly, but on these other ones, I don't know what they mean or how to do those. So that's why I'm saying that it may be worth, if you guys don't want to do it, I don't know what they're going to do. It's entirely up to you guys. If you guys want to do this, great. If you don't want to spend that much, I can have them revise the scope, do less. I mean, the money's in the meetings, and that's where it is. I felt that it was important that we understood as a city, as a planning commission and city council. I mean, there's 4 meetings they're attending. I felt it was important that you understood this issue and you understood what your options were and spent the time educating. Now, but I also understand Highland, right? And I understand the concerns over density, and I also understand the market. We can improve all the density we want, let's say we wanted to, But when you know we approve Blackstone, and they're going for $400,000, what do you do?
Yeah, that's moderate income.
Right? Really, I mean, it's a challenge.
Crazy.
So, I mean, it's...
I'm ready for a motion to whatever. Again, I think it's important that we do good planning, and I know Nathan's got a lot on his plate, so this is money to get us all educated and the community.
So Nathan, just a question before we do the motion. Nathan, do you think if we spend less money, we can at least get to, you know, it says choose 3 out of these strategies. You know, we can get some of that, maybe get some scope of the work so we kind of know, and then we could kind of prove if it looks like we can meet some of those without keeping going forward.
Really what you're doing, if you're going to do less, it's going to be, okay, we'll do a joint work session with Planning Commission and City Council. That's what it means. It's not, because if you go through the list, you're really getting, there may be 1 or 2 you don't discuss, but it's going to be a discussion to most of them. Right?
And I don't think that's unreasonable that we have a joint.
Right.
A joint
And
meeting.
adoption may be just a presentation to council and not planning commission. So I would say, okay, take 2 out. Take two presentations out, and then give me a price.
So it goes back to the question I asked at first to Tim. So what if we don't do anything with this? We don't meet the state mandate or different things. And we just don't get the TIF funds that nobody seems to know what they are or how much they'll be. I mean, can we just say, hey?
So if we don't comply with state law, then we can be sued for compliance. So under the statute, we're not liable for damages, but they can get an injunction, require us to move forward. And whatever the council decides, I would point out that 10 grand is still less than the amount of bail it would cost to take Scott out of jail.
Well, the other thing is, it's going to take time away from...
When's the election again?
It's going to take time away from staff and doing other things. I mean, we could easily spend that money doing something else. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve the contract with Planning Solutions for the preparation of the moderate income housing element for the general plan administration, and remove two of the meetings that we have them give us, re-quote it.
Is there a second?
So we're going to get another bid to come back, and that's what our motion is. Is that correct, Brian?
Correct.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we direct staff to take out 2 meetings from the quote and get it rebid by the company.
So to me, the main issue here is I want to make a wise decision about what the next step is. This will give us the information. We can choose to go to jail once we know that we don't want to take any additional action after we get this back, or we can look at it and go, we're already meeting it, so it's a moot issue. We don't have to waste 1 more second about it, but we have the information, we can make a decision about it.
But we're not spending any money yet. We're just going back and getting another bid to come back to tell us what the money's going to be to eliminate 2 meetings.
Okay. Move the question.
Okay, so are we done with discussion, ready to vote? Aaron, are we on paper? So this will be an all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, 3-1, that passes. All right, next item is, now Mr. Burdette, thank you for being patient.
Don't you love it?
Yes. Next item is item 8, action ordinance amending section 6.1 credit cards and section 7 disciplinary action, the Highland City Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual relating to the passage of HB 163. Nathan, it's yours.
Okay. Again, another bill with the recent legislation. This came out of audit by the state auditor, where they found some misuse of public property and funds. What it does is it replaces section 6.10 credit card policy in our personnel policy procedures manual, and modifies a example section in section 7 of our disciplinary policy. Just to go over the section 6.1, it would be public funds only use, some of this is self-explanatory, so I find it fascinating that they had to pass legislation for it, but here we are. Only used for the sole purpose of authorized public funds, no personal expenditures. They would apply to the public safety district. So if somebody accidentally was a city employee and they used public safety funds for something, this would allow us to have disciplinary action as appropriate.
How many employees have city credit cards?
We only have one city credit card that we use.
That we use?
That the city uses. We have access to it, but we have strict, Stephanie has one control over it. It's signed out, in and out.
So there's one card.
There's one card.
This doesn't just address that. Barry Edwards, as an example, gave property out of a building that we owned on SR 92 and just gave away the steel roof, gave away other pieces of property that didn't go through a bid process, wasn't sold. Just, you know, if you want to come in and just take the roof off, he didn't have authorization to do that and just did it. If an employee were...
Who did that?
Barry Edwards.
Oh, really?
If he were to do something like that today, this would have some teeth in going back and doing more than slapping a hand. It would make that a criminal kind of thing.
The example I heard was jurisdiction bought somebody a car, but it was used mostly for personal use versus business use. So a personal use expenditure, an expenditure made without approval that is not directly related to the performance of a job, and public property used solely for the purpose of fulfilling the employee's duties as an employee. Pretty simple stuff. So basically what it does allows appropriate disciplinary action up to including termination based on what it was. Now, we've had a couple instances where minor things have happened. You know, somebody's buying a large amount of items for fleeing or a library, and these are not real, but I just give you an example. And, you know, a thing of Tic Tacs gets in there and they go, oops, and they reimburse us or whatever the case may be with it. Or, you know, a Facebook ad goes out and it accidentally uses a card, city card, when it should have used a different card, just how Facebook works. But we get reimbursed and we move on. I've been part of other city where they were, another state obviously, but it was happy hour time, and the employee bought drinks with the city credit card, and he was gone the next day. So that was different circumstances, but
you feel we have good checks and balances over our
yes. Yes, we do. In that instance, department heads had their own cards, and so you could put it in your wallet, and it was really easy to pull it out. And I hated having it. So, anyways, but we worked with our human resources attorney to write this, and she wrote it for us to put in our policy. So, happy to answer any questions you have on it.
So if the mayor's ready, I'll just make a motion.
Ready.
I would move that we amend the section 6.10, credit cards, and section 7, disciplinary action, in the Highland City Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual relating to the passage of HB 163 as presented.
I'll second it.
Do we want to just approve ordinance number
Ordinance
2019-11?
219-11.
So that
Amend it to have that ordinance.
Tim, can I suggest you just do that instead of, so that it's clear?
Didn't see that part.
That's the way it's written, the ordinance, the title of the ordinance is what you read.
Right.
Or is it?
But it's an ordinance that we need to do. Instead of approving the pieces, we need to do the ordinance, which makes that change.
So it's this one right here.
Okay, so I would move that we approve ordinance number 0-2019-11.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded, ready for a vote. Is this roll call?
It's the ordinance, probably.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 So that was Kurt, Tim, Scott, and Brian all voted yes. In that order. Thank you. All right, next item is discussion. Staff, do we have any discussion items?
I do.
Just a reminder of the Canada Open House on Thursday.
And we have some of them right.
So I just want to clarify, so if we want to bring something in the discussion items, we have to call the mayor ahead of time and put it on the agenda the Thursday before. Is that what you're telling us from the Open Meetings Act?
Well, I think that would be the conservative way to interpret
What was
and
that?
discuss items that are not on the agenda but brought to your attention by the public.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I acknowledge that we haven't been too strict about that.
Okay.
What was that? Sorry, I missed that.
I was just asking him about
The
the
open meetings law.
council bringing up issues at the end for discussion.
Oh, yeah.
And as a conservative position, if we don't do that, what's the penalty? Slap our hands?
Jail time?
Throw us off the council?
Some of you might be doing that every week.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
just a reminder, August 6th be the next council meeting.
okay, August 6th is the next council meeting, and we have a closed session scheduled. I'll entertain a motion to move to closed session.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And we're moving to closed session to discuss pending or imminent litigation.